AI is becoming huge, and today I'm going to use ChatGPT. This is something that can write scripts, you can ask it questions, it can even do programming. But today I'm going to ask it the best and worst things about Melbourne and see if I agree. Let's start by talking about the best things in Melbourne. Number one, the cultural diversity. Melbourne is one of the most diverse cities in Australia with a vibrant mix of cultures, cuisines and festivals. Now, when we spent time in Melbourne, we ate a lot. We ate a lot of different food, and it was food from around the world. We had a lot of Asian food. That was from dim sum, that was ramen. But then we also had chicken. We had like an English style breakfast. Okay, that's not a lot of different food, but I know for sure there are a lot Indian food as well. There are definitely a lot of cultures that are in Melbourne, and you see it when you're walking around the streets. So I can certainly agree that Melbourne is a very diverse city, which once again, I said this when I looked at Australia as a whole. When I originally thought about Australia, I didn't think of diversity, but actually when we were in places like Melbourne, you could see it. Definitely you could see it. So I agree with cultural diversity. The next one, great food and coffee. If you've been following my channel, you will know I'm not really a fan of coffee. I hate the smell, I hate the taste, just the after effect when people drink it. It's not nice. So I'm not there for the coffee. It may be lovely, it may be awful. I don't know, and I don't really care. The great food sort of goes with the cultural diversity, I think, though, because actually what you get when you do have a cultural diverse place, they bring all of their food into the location. So I would say, because we've tried lots of food there and you can see all the cultures, 100%, Melbourne has some amazing food. And I would say out of the 3 cities we visited, Melbourne, Sydney and Adelaide, I would say Melbourne, we ate the most and we had the most diverse food. So I completely agree. There's nothing else I can say except yes. Cultural diversity equals great food, most of the time anyway. Number 3 is sports. Melbourne is known as the sporting capital of Australia and is home to some of the country's biggest sporting events, including the Australian Open, the Melbourne Cup, and the AFL Grand Final, which we went to. Oh, amazing. I so hope I can get there next year. Oh, please, please. If I could do that, that would be incredible. And hopefully Swans will win. So what do I think? Now, I know the Melbourne Cup's there. And I clearly know the grand finals there. You've got the MCG, one of the best stadiums in the world for sure. There is the whole tennis hotspot with all the pitches there. Do you call it tennis pitch? Tennis court. That's it. People are already in the comments like, you're an idiot. It's court. And there are obviously all the other stadiums. The Marvel Stadium, for example. There is a lot of sport going on in Melbourne. Easy. Yeah, I completely agree. I do think Sydney is a close second for sports in Australia. But yeah, I think the majority of the finals and the big events end up going down to Melbourne. I think Melbourne could be the capital of Australia, let's be honest. If Canberra wasn't, and there wasn't the dispute between Sydney, because it does seem like a lot of the sporting events goes down to Melbourne. Number 4, parks and gardens. Melbourne is home to many beautiful parks and gardens, including the Royal Botanical Gardens, Fitzroy Gardens and Albert Park. Now, this one's a weird one because, yes, there are plenty, and we walked and we saw plenty. But it depends how you look at Melbourne. If you look at Melbourne just in the sense of the CBD, yes, there is the odd bit of greenery, but I think the big, tall, skyscraper-style buildings really overshadows it. If you then go outside of it, then you certainly notice it more. Even from walking down the Yarra, for example, you notice it a lot more. However, I don't necessarily... It doesn't... When I think of Melbourne, parks and gardens is not necessarily what I think of because of simply those huge buildings on that grid system, and that overwhelms me because of where I'm from. So actually, I don't think parks and gardens is a big one, in my opinion. I know people will disagree, for sure, and that's absolutely fine. But just from my experience there, it wasn't something that I was drawn to or massively noticed, to be honest. Number 5, arts and entertainment. Melbourne has a thriving arts and entertainment scene with numerous galleries, museums, theatres and music venues. Now, I'm going to have to take its word because I know there was galleries, and in most cities there are galleries, okay? However, when we were on our trip, we weren't really in the mood to go to museums and things like that because we were out filming, doing the vlogs. If you haven't checked it out, charlieandrob.com and on our YouTube channel, Charlie and Rob. But so we weren't, going around galleries and museums isn't really great for filming, but I'm sure they're there. Is it enough to say, look, we've got all these, it's a big draw for people? Maybe. I don't know how much I can comment on it though. However, I would say, but Melbourne is known for having lots of fairly trendy people, and so, even when it's the street art, for example, that shows that, it is a place that is real, has that vibe of art and excitement and bustling, the coffee. I think it goes hand in hand. Let's look at the worst things and see if I agree. The first one, expensive cost of living. Melbourne is one of the most expensive cities in Australia, with high housing costs, food prices and transportation expenses. Now, yes and no. So with the high prices, for example, for living, when we go away places, we look at in estate agents and we look in the windows and see what sort of prices are. And some of the prices are mental, especially for a high rise, a flat and a high rise, like millions for a flat. And you think, what? It's so small, it's no garden, why would I want to live there? No idea. I'm sure there are people that love living there. But then you look at things like transportation, depends what transportation you mean. If you look at the trams, it's free. Uber, quite cheap. So I don't necessarily agree with the transportation from my experience of what I used. Food prices, I've mentioned this before on the previous episode looking at Australia. Yes, some things are more expensive than we have in the UK, but some things are cheaper. So I actually think it sort of even itself out. And overall, I think it's probably about the same as in the UK. This is the one that I always hear. The unpredictable weather. Melbourne is known for its unpredictable weather, with 4 seasons in one day not being uncommon. Now, we didn't experience 4 seasons in a day. We certainly experienced the cold and then the warmth, only a little bit of warmth. So we didn't necessarily experience, did we get rain? Yes, we did get a little bit of rain, but we didn't get the drastic changes. But I've got to believe everyone that watches my video that is from Australia, and especially from Melbourne, because you guys always tell me there can be 4 seasons in a day. I don't think it helps as well in generally because where you've got the grid system and the tall high rises, the wind sweeps through and oh my God, it really can be cold because of those wind tunnels that are created. Number 3, traffic. Melbourne has some of the worst traffic congestion in Australia, particularly during peak hours. Now, I think, of course, it's right to be in the worst things, okay? But go to most cities in peak time and it will be bad. Most major cities, London, Paris, etc., you will get awful traffic at peak times because there are so many people living in a relatively small place, and everyone's trying to drive at the same time. So yes, I will agree. We drove in around Melbourne 3 times. Once we got back at about peak time, and it was hard work because you just get stuck. You just get stuck. And this is a funny thing, side note, it doesn't matter how many lanes you have on a road, on a motorway or whatever, as soon as you put in extra lanes or extra roads, they fill up. So yes, although I don't think this is specific to Melbourne, it obviously is true for Melbourne. Number 4 on the worst things, crime. While Melbourne is a relatively safe city, well, that makes it a little bit of a stupid statement, there are still instances of crime, including theft and assault. What? Isn't there theft and assault everywhere you go? I don't think you can put it in one of the worst things, but then say, while Melbourne is a relatively safe city. That is a stupid one. That's a stupid one, isn't it? Like, what's the point? However, I think people think crime rate is going up because people now put it all over social media, like Facebook. You'll see on the local town or city Facebook pages, someone's burgled my garage. So people are more aware of it, but I think that is a stupid one to have. Let's forget about that one, I think. Number 5, and actually this might be one of the biggest things about Melbourne for the worst. Limited beach access. Unlike other Australian cities like Sydney and Brisbane, Melbourne is not known for its beaches and has limited beach access within the city. Now, we went to St Kilda, we did the walk of the solar system walk, and there is the beach. It was okay. It wasn't the same as Manly Beach, for example, and it wasn't the same as Glenelg Beach, for example. But so if that's all you've got, it's more of a harbour. It seems more of a place where you got yachts and fancy boats rather than people laying on the sandy beach on a hot summer's day. So actually, considering I'm generalising, most Aussies like the beach and surfing and all that. It doesn't seem like Melbourne is necessarily the greatest place to be. If you want to surf, you want to lay on the beach, take your dog for a run along the beach, it's not the greatest of places. And considering that is what Australia prides itself on, its glorious beaches. The beaches surround Australia, but actually they sort of missed out Melbourne. Well, please do let me know what you think. Do you think some of those best things are actually probably the worst things? Or maybe the worst things are a little bit dramatic, like I thought with the crime rate? What a stupid point. Thank you so much for watching. Please do make sure you like and subscribe. Once again, check out charlieandrob.com, and I will catch you on the next one.